So when we say communications, we're thinking more about like connecting with supporters, the missions of the organization, getting the different information about the organization out to your supporters or your donors. With development, it's mostly, we're thinking about fundraising, development of the organization itself, and sustainability of the organization, expanding its programs, creating plans, and figuring out what steps need to be taken so that the organization can grow and maintain its programs. Both the development and the communication teams are really important entities in a nonprofit, and they have a lot of overlap. There's a lot of tasks that they really need, they both have different knowledge, and they really need to collaborate and share their knowledge in order to make those tasks a success. We have a list of different tasks here that we've kind of identified. Some are small scale, some are larger, but just tasks that nonprofits, such as many of our own organizations or schools, have to do on a regular basis. And they have to do with communication or development. And so one thing we want to start thinking about is where is the overlap between these two teams. So if you just want to take a look, and feel free to discuss with the people around you, take a look at these lists of just a couple of different tasks and identify for yourself which ones are primarily communication tasks and the communication team can really work on their own, and then which ones are more development, and then what tasks really require both teams. Okay, so let's get started. First, we want to see what tasks you guys identified as being just development team. Any tasks that you think the development team can do on their own, maybe the communications team isn't really involved in it that much. Anna.
Researching partnerships with other organizations.
Okay, researching partnerships with other organizations. Anything else?
I would say grants and funding.
Excellent idea.
Tracking donations and donor history.
Yeah, tracking donations and donor history. Great. Researching stats, sending fundraising strategies. Okay, so these are definitely the development team works on all of these. Did any of you have any of these tasks in a different category? Yes?
Fundraising strategies.
Fundraising strategies.
We put researching partnerships.
Uh-huh.
These partnerships can be for different reasons.
Yeah, so partnerships could be funding partnerships, but they could also be resource partnerships with organizations, just building a partnership with a similar organization to share best practices, kind of what we're doing here.
Tracking donations.
Okay.
Thought that it's important for the communications team to know that so that they can figure out how best to speak to whoever they're actually fundraising from.
Great. So now we want to know, what did you put under for just communications? What tasks were identified as just tasks that the communications will be working on? Yeah.
Updating Facebook.
Updating Facebook. Good one. Drew.
Creating a press release.
Creating a press release. Creating a fundraising email, okay?
Continued communication with major donors.
Okay. So now I want to ask for these things that we've identified as being just communication tasks, no development involvement. Is there anyone that put any of these tasks in a different category than what we've listed here?
The fundraising email, personally with our organization, the development side kind of comes up with how much we're looking to raise, what kind of our goal is, and then we partner with the communications team to actually do like the wording and then get the push out.
Mm-hmm. Great. And you also had one?
With the continued communication with major donors, because organizations go in different directions all the time. So the developmental team should be on the same page so they can know how to continue the relationship.
Great. And there's no real right or wrong answers to these, but how we kind of outlined these is for development, just development. We listed researching grants and funding, tracking donations and donor history, and soliciting corporate donations as development team tasks. And solely communication team tasks we had as updating Facebook, creating press releases, and strategies to raise awareness for the organization. So really what we wanted to do here, and all those other tasks that we have listed on that sheet, are really things that Rachel and I have collaborated and our teams have collaborated on working together. And I think it shows that really there is quite a lot of overlap between these two teams, even if they're two separate teams that exist within an organization. There really is a lot of overlap, and there really is a lot of need for collaboration, both within these tasks we have listed, but then also a lot of these tasks, it's a little fuzzy who has the responsibility. It's not clear cut. So really defining what the responsibilities of each team are and then how we're sharing responsibilities is important in an organization. So what we're going to do next is talk a little bit about our experience working together, how we've kind of created within Abriendo Mentes communication teams and development teams what their work is in the organization, and then important areas that we've identified as being really crucial for the two teams to collaborate together.
So, as a member of the communications team for Abriendo Mentes, I would say that our main objective of the communications team is to display information about our organization to the public. That is our overarching goal as the communications team. And there's a lot of different reasons that we do that. Some of them are simply to keep our donors and our supporters informed about our daily activities of the organization, of any changes within the organization. It's really their right to know, especially if they've donated money to us, it's their right to know where that money is going and how it's being spent. Also, we provide information to the public just to raise awareness of our organization. If we want to continue growing in our programming, if we want to expand to different locations, we really will need to raise awareness of our organization and as well as the cause that we are working towards. And we also provide information to attract new donors and to attract new volunteers that will effectively have an impact on our organization as well. And providing information to the public is done through many ways. Obviously, I think the biggest way that we do that is through online. Our website is one of the main priorities of the communications team, just keeping the website updated and with current information about our organization so that whenever people want to know anything about Abriendo Mentes, they can go to our website and find anything easily. We use Facebook kind of as our daily update hub where we post photos or post interesting facts about activities or events that we just did. We use Twitter a lot to connect with other like-minded organizations. It's a really great way to pass along information about, if we're working towards the same topics, or, if I find a great article on education in Latin America, we'll tweet that and hopefully get some responses from other organizations. We use our blog as a way to go into depth more about certain events that we did or certain aspects of our programming, so if people want to learn more in depth about certain things, they can read our blog about them. And then there's also other ways that we, give information to the public, such as press releases, email blasts, and we send out monthly newsletters. So there's a lot of ways that we do that. Another responsibility of the communications team is to research and collect and connect with similar organizations. It's really important to make connections with other organizations because you never know when you'll have the opportunity to collaborate with another organization for an awareness campaign, for instance, or for a fundraising campaign. And so if I find an organization that I think we have the same values or the same goals or the same type of programming, I'll go, find them on Facebook, connect with them there, follow them on Twitter in hopes that they'll do the same to us. And that is a good way to raise awareness, to get our name out there, because then they'll see our organization and hopefully be able to connect with us as well. The communication team also deals directly with fundraising. I'm going to go into that more into detail a little later, but we're kind of responsible for making materials for the fundraisers and for marketing the fundraisers and making sure it gets to the appropriate audience that we're trying to reach for their fundraiser.
For the development team, like I mentioned before, our main concern is really raising funds for the organization and creating a sustainable plan so that we can continue our programming and then expand our programming as we move forward. So we do that in a variety of different ways. First is working with the programs themselves and understanding what their needs are, developing their budgets with them, and then so that we can then go forward and solicit funding for those needs. We do that by researching grant opportunities and writing grants, also finding different organizations and corporates, I guess that we might have the opportunity to get a sponsorship with. Anything that really, it's an entity that has funds available for nonprofits such as ourselves, and then applying for those funds. We also work a lot with donor relations. So making sure that supporters understand the organization, what their money goes towards when they donate, making sure they feel very invested in the organization and involved. Also going along with that is tracking donations. So tracking individual donor history, but also making sure we understand when are our when are our push-outs most successful? When are our fundraisers most successful? During what times of years? What type of strategies have been most successful with our donor base so that we can learn from that and use it in the future? We do a lot of fundraisers and fundraising campaigns to raise funds, anything from creating the message and the timeline for how we want to push out the fundraiser to also building teams that we think are important to work on this event. We do, as we mentioned before, researching community data and organizational impact. So this is something that's really important for a nonprofit, as I'm sure many of you have worked with, really understanding and finding statistics for your impact in the community to first show the need for your programming, but then also show the effectiveness of your programming and that it's worth investing in. And then lastly is long-term planning for the organization, looking at where we've come from and what was successful this year and what can we possibly do next year. What are the goals that we can create and reach next year so that we can expand our program and keep going with our program. When you hear us talking, we're using a lot of the same words. We're both talking about donors, we're both talking about communication and connecting with people. We're both talking about outreaches. And so there's a lot of really key tasks that we've had to work together and our teams have had to work together on to make sure that they're successful. And there's three main areas that we've identified as being crucial for development and communication teams to share best practices and strategies and their knowledge to make sure they're successful. So our first one is essentially creating a common message for the organization, which is really important. Both the communication teams and the development teams are connecting with people outside the organization, and it's really important that we have a cohesive message that we're presenting simultaneously. So anything from making sure that we are using updated stats that are accurate, that we have the same message, that we're using the same language so that when I submit a grant and the organization looks at it, the first thing they're going to do is type in our website and look at what Rachel has written on their website or the communication team has written on the website. And it's important that those two things reflect a similar organization, that it paints a similar picture for our organization so that it first of all builds a trust in the organization, like you understand what they do. If those two things are different, it creates confusion and you don't really know what the organization is or what they do. And if that's the case, then it builds in credibility. So it's really important that we are always connecting on those two topics, making sure that we're always looking at each other's work, that checking for inconsistencies, making sure that we're putting out the same message, and then also sharing new information with each other. When there's new statistics out, we share it with each other, share it with all the teams, or if anything new with the programs, make sure that everyone's on the same page about it so that we're putting out the same message.
The second way that we want to highlight where we found that it's really important for communication and development teams to work closely together is through fundraisers. Fundraisers may seem like an essentially just a development project because the goal of a fundraiser is to raise money, but a fundraiser couldn't be implemented without a communication team as well. So the development team is really responsible for assessing the need for the fundraiser, kind of setting a goal of how much money we need to raise either for a certain project or for a certain program, and also they target where the money will be spent. And then the communication team comes in and implements the fundraiser because they know more of the strategies of how to reach people, when the best time is to reach people, and like what technologies or what medium outlets are best used to reach people. And so, but they also need to collaborate together for a fundraiser to create the message. So the development team may know what specific information needs to be involved in the fundraiser, and then the communication team kind of knows the strategies of how to reach the target audience that you're trying to reach. And so they may collaborate on a lot of wording. They may collaborate on how to make a certain logo or what this should say or how this should look. But the important thing to know when collaborating with fundraisers is that each team, both the communications and development team, have specific strengths that the other team doesn't have. And so the development team needs to rely on the communications team to know when and how to push out or market the fundraiser. And the communication team needs to rely on the development team for the actual message of the fundraiser. And so you kind of can't have one without the other.
And then our third main point, and we've talked about it a little bit, is donor relations. And that's probably the biggest place where, at least in our organization, the communication and the development team collaborate. And what that really is making sure that supporters are interested in the program, that they want to donate, and it's something that both of us have collaborated on. So first, it sounds really simple, but making sure people know how to donate. So, for instance, Abriendo Mentes has quite a few different avenues that a supporter could donate through, and it's important that that's highlighted on many of our communications with supporters so that it's accessible. They know how to access donor information. They know how to they know how to give a donation, and they know how to choose which donation option is best for them. It's also important that something we both work on is making sure that donors continue to stay engaged in the organization. Even if they're not here on the ground with Portrero, they're a vital part of everything we do here. And we want them to know that. We want them to feel that way. So we want to, it's, in the development team's best interest to continue to talk to donors, continue to update them on where we are. And a lot of the way we do that is through the avenues of the communications team. It's through our emails, it's through our Facebook. So making sure that those updates are getting out, that the donors know how their funds are being spent, and then also that they just continue to feel engaged and connected to the organization.
We just want to make kind of like a side note to just say that the information that we presented isn't going to apply to all organizations. These are 3 things that we found that work best for Abriendo Mentes for the communications and development team, where we really have to make sure that we're communicating effectively. But every organization is different. They come in different sizes, they have different resources available to them, they have different missions, but it's still important for communication and development teams to work together if you want to accomplish your goals.
Okay, so with that being said, we kind of want to hear a little bit from your own organizations and how you bring in either how your communication and development teams work together or how you use communication and development strategies together.
We have different teams send one representative to the other team's meetings.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, and it sounds like it's a simple idea, but really setting aside time that's designated for each program to talk to each other and just update each other on what's going on.
Maybe getting other people who are invested in the project to then do that work for you and use the power of social media to spread the word.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
I think using the Omprakash network itself can be a great marriage between the two. You can have donors directly, and also this expense tool that we have that shows the summary of all donations and your spending, especially for those organizations who don't have constant access to internet or just one person.
Yeah, that's great. We in our organization really encourage people to be posting and always using that as a resource for communication.
Having explicit tasks.
Yeah, these are all really great. And then Rachel and I have come up with 5 strategies that we want to share with you, and it actually touches on a lot of these things that you guys discussed.
So one of the first strategies that we discussed is if you are in a larger organization and have multiple people per communication and per development team, it's a really good idea to have a point person for those teams who knows it's their responsibility to communicate with the other team. A second strategy is to create cohesive goals for the specific project or for the specific fundraiser or event that you're holding. And another strategy is to always consider the other team. Whenever you have a new project or whenever you get new information, automatically think about how will the communications team or how will the development team be able to use this information, and what do I have to do to inform them of this, and what do they have to do to inform me of other things.
And then the last one, like was mentioned earlier, is, it sounds really simple, but write it down. Write down a plan, an action plan. Write down your strategies. Write down a timeline for these fundraising goals, these communication goals, so that everyone really has it's not just in your head then, it's down on paper. Everyone can literally look at it and think through it and offer suggestions. And as we move forward, kind of look back on it and think about how it needs to be changed, how the plan needs to be changed. So those are a couple strategies that we identified while working together, and hopefully just these discussions have helped you think about your own organizations and how you merge these 2 tasks, how they kind of come together with your organization and best practices for moving forward.